Hey guys, remember Vinyl, Season 1, Episode 9, Rock and Roll Queen. I was really looking forward to this episode. It seems like every episode, they're just getting better and better. They're starting to realize what works and what doesn't work, and this episode, I thought was great. Another really great episode. Honestly, probably my favorite so far. Maybe better than the first episode, which there hasn't been an episode that surpassed the first episode, but this was really close to a perfect episode. I really don't have many problems with this episode. It was interesting. It was shocking. There were some really great twists, and the ending especially. I'm really looking forward to seeing what next week's finale is going to be like, because for a while, I know a lot of us have thought, well, there's not really much the show's delivering, but this episode really showed that a lot of what we've seen this season is starting to carry over and become much bigger than we think, and I definitely really do enjoy that. So let's just get into this episode. There's a lot to talk about. First of all, I'm someone that is enjoying this murder case. I know a lot of people aren't enjoying this whole storyline with Buck and everything, and they think it's really stupid, and just because and I get it, everything else is very interesting. They're not focusing on it, but I like it. I do. I think it's interesting. I think it's keeping Richie's character in trouble, and it's really the only thing right now that can get us to keep rooting for Richie. We want him to get out of this, obviously, and Richie is in jail, and his guard tells him his lawyer is here, who says he's down the shore. He says he down the shore, and it jumps in the car as soon as he heard, but they had called his house instead of the service, and basically the guard then brings him in the room, and the lawyer is now, a week late, like a week late. They didn't contact the lawyer till a week, and Richie's pretty pissed about that, obviously, because he really wanted this lawyer, and it seems like they only called him now, and obviously he's upset about that, which he has genuine reasons to be. So Harlan Reed sees Richie is coughing, asks if they could bring him an aspirin, and he says that they will when he's not a junkie, and they know that he's using, obviously. So Richie says he wants to sue because it took them all weekend to call him. He says that's not the right move right now, and Richie says the man tried to kill him and he had to defend himself, but the lawyer says that he could be charged for manslaughter, and I like that they remind us that, because yeah, really, what Richie did was in self-defense. He didn't really do anything fundamentally wrong. I've said this many times, that he just killed this man in self, he didn't think he was actually going to kill Buck Rogers. He just attacked, he hurt him in self-defense because obviously, he was on him, and he's still going to be charged for manslaughter because of the way they handled the body, which is mainly Corzo's fault, but still Richie was involved with that, and regardless of, that, he still could be charged, and Officer Horiski then comes in, introduces Richie and his lawyer to Detective Vohill, of course, as we're getting reintroduced to him, who tells him that he looks like shit, and he's with the Organized Crime Task Force, and he spoke to him a while back, and he introduces him to U.S. Attorney Nate Drucker, and I love the scene where Vohill is like to Harlan Reed, the scene where he's trying to bond with him over Harlan Marlin. I thought that was pretty funny. I definitely enjoyed that, but Drucker says that at best, they're looking at manslaughter or murder there, but it's still up in the air, which would give him 30 years. And Reed says that it's absurd, asks why the attorney's office gives a shit. And Drucker asks Richie how long he's been working with Galasso, and Richie says he doesn't work for him and tells him that he loaned him money, but he's paying him back with a pound of flesh. And yeah, that's the truth. He doesn't work for him, and I like that Richie was sincere here. Reed says to arraign Richie and call it a day, because he just feels this is ridiculous, and there's no reason to be doing this. And Volo says he's going to trial. Horiski tells Richie that they'll send him upstate, and even if he gets in a year in that time in business has flooded, his wife's banging a neighbor and he's broke, or he can stay out of jail and help them put an actual crime in the can. So basically, they want him to, basically testify with what's going on with Galasso, because they know that Galasso obviously is involved with a lot of things, but Richie just doesn't really want to testify about it. And Richie asks if they want him to rat on Galasso, and says that they should just kill him now, and Drucker says all he needs is information. He overhears a conversation or sees something interesting just to let them know. That's really what they want him to do. They're not asking him to do all this complicated stuff. Basically, if he hears a conversation or just something doesn't sound right, just to let them know. And I think it's a very quiet way to do it, but obviously Richie's very worried because he just knows how powerful Galasso is. I mean, remember the first episode when Lester went against him, and he almost beat Lester to a pulp. I mean, just the way that he was beaten up. That's why Lester and Richie are kind of at odds right now. So we see Vohill ask what he means by if and when they just solve the homicide, and Horiski says it's a high-profile murder case and they shouldn't just sweep it under the carpet. Drucker says Richie will plead to manslaughter, and feds will have a bigger fish with Galasso, and basically they won't want to go after Richie because Galasso's done a lot more than him, and Richie says that he didn't infiltrate Basically, they talk about, Richie says he knows nothing about Golasso, and Drucker says that that's bullshit because Maury's his friend, and Golasso infiltrated his company years ago, but Richie says he didn't infiltrate his, which he didn't really until now. He did, obviously, a lot of his gangsters, they can hang out there, but it's still American Century, it still is Richie's company. So Drucker says he can hold them off for maybe a day, but that's it. They tell Reed to talk to Richie. They're fairly confident he can fed them information without getting himself killed. They leave, and Richie asks Reed what he thinks about the plan because he's not really sure if he should go along with this. I mean, it's not really the most well executed plan, but he kind of wants to go along with it. And Reed says that he thinks riding on Golasso is a suicide mission, but the last guy he knew sent him to the can for manslaughter, got all his teeth knocked out so they could just fuck him in the mouth without scraping. So he doesn't really know what to think, if this is the best thing to do. He doesn't really know what he should do here. Which, it is a complicated situation because on one hand, Richie gets off scot-free because he'll be putting a worser criminal away than Corzo. But on the other hand, Richie could get in a big trouble with Golasso and his guys, and we know that Golasso has, gangsters and everything that come after Richie. So either way, he's kind of screwed. And basically, we see basically he doesn't really know what to think. So we get a lot more with Jamie in this episode, which is something that I definitely really enjoyed. With everyone in general, I thought we got a lot of really good stuff here, but Jamie especially. A lot of people have been saying that Jamie should be the main character of the show, and I feel like we're really starting to get a lot more with her. Like, we have as of fairly recently, but this by far was the most we've had of Jamie all season. So Jamie finds a homeless man going through her bag, yells him to get out of her shit. He runs away. She goes to Bellamy's door, obviously bangs in it, asking, because she knows that Bellamy is responsible, and she's asking her what she did, who tells her to stop screaming, or she will call the police, says her mom made her do it, and Bellamy says she really wanted this to work out, she should have listened to her instead of carrying on with degenerates, and Jamie asks if she paid her to put her on the street and tells Bellamy that she's a whore, and Bellamy tells her to leave. And obviously, Bellamy's saying, you just leave now. And, she wanted her to listen to reason, but Jamie's just going on and on about all these things. And Jamie says she has to get something, but she tosses her out. Jamie ends up falling down the steps, and Bellamy feels terrible. Jamie then starts going through her bag, and I mean, she's just outraged about what's going on, which I think she has every reason to be upset about this kind of situation because she has no control over it. There's really nothing she can do. She didn't listen to her mother, and that's basically why it's happening. And Bellamy doesn't want to do this, but again, we know how powerful a mother is, and when her mother wants something done, it pretty much has to get done. She's definitely one of those kind of figures. So there's really nothing they can do about this, unfortunately. Richie then heads into American Century. Zach is upset at Maury for not asking Heather to get him coffee and forcing him to. Right away, Maury is causing problems, you can already tell. And Richie tells Maury that they can share Cece, but Maury says that's not okay because she's got an attitude he doesn't like, and Maury pretty much has an opinion about everything, you can definitely tell. And if she wants to make a point, she's doing it on her own time, and you can definitely tell this is going to become a problem. Already, you can already tell. So Andy comes in, gives Maury his coffee. Zach lets them know she's an executive now, and Cece's relieved to see Richie, who she thought was dead, in an alley, and he tells him he was supposed to take his kids to dinner, but Richie doesn't want to hear about it. He didn't know, basically, she talked about Devon called last night, and Richie he doesn't want to hear about it. Close the door. Maury says he doesn't care for Cece either. He then goes into his office, notices the phone's not working, and we see Devon is then taking naked pictures of Billy, that photographer she's with. I like where this is going. I really do. I like what Billy is trying to do for her. He tells her to get him out of the center of the frame because she has to shake up the competition. And he's literally just lying on the bed naked, but she's taking pictures of him. And she says she's playing with the depth of field and tells him to stop covering his cock. And he asks how he's completely sure her kids won't walk in. And she says Ingrid took them for breakfast at the Sherry Netherland and then shopping at Schwartz. And he asks her if she's going to sell them, and she of course says no, and he says her John Lennon shots will get her $2 to $3 grand a pop, and she says that she should have found the role she took of Jimi Hendrix wearing her underwear, and he asks of course what she's talking about, because realizing that she has these photos, I mean, one, it's Jimi Hendrix, two, she has these photos just in her attic, and obviously you can tell that, Billy's kind of thinking that he could use these, and she says she became, she said she became a professional entertainer of musicians and either nurturing or kicking small habits, and somehow their pool became the best place in the century to do either. He says she never developed them, and she says it was just something she to do, and he says that they will drive up to her house and develop all of it. She says it was private time with friends. He says she should have a source of income and that Ingrid will get bored with her kids eventually, and she tells him to stop. He says he's sorry. She asks if he thinks the box in her act is some kind of windfall for him, and he says no, and she asks why they're talking about her finances, and he says because he doesn't want her to run out of money and then leave. And you can really see that he does care about her, and in many ways I think he really just wants her to go into this field. He sees that she's talented. He sees that she's really good. Why not go into this? I mean, the dance company's not working for her. She is this woman that's a bitch, as we know, and demands all this money, and if she was a photographer, it could be a much better job for her. I mean, she already is so close with Warhol and Ingrid. She's starting to get closer. She's starting up this relationship with Billy. It just could be a good thing for her if she did decide to go into this field. So I'm wondering if Billy is going to point in this direction, and I kind of do feel it's a good area for Devon to go in. I mean, we've known how great at photography she is since the first episode of this season, and now really starting to see how great she is at it, and I think he really is trying to point her in that direction, so I definitely like that. So at A&R, we get a very similar scene to episode 3, where they're basically trying to figure out what artists to keep, what artists to get rid of, but that first artist they listened to, that demo, that was pretty horrendous, I have to say, and Richie tells him that, basically, Maury, of course, walks him, because, again, he feels like he has all his control, and he says he's not there to interrupt, he's there to listen. Richie tells him he's taught him everything he knows, and they're lucky to have him. Clark asks if he wants to order lunch, and Richie seems to be the only one that really wants Maury there, because Maury even complains over ordering lunch, which clearly, Maury's used to much more, luscious, luxurious lifestyle, and this isn't that. We know how casual American Century is. They ignore him, and Julie asks what's happening with the nasty bits, and Andy says Lester is finishing the mixtape from Friday, and they're shooting cover art today. Julie asks what's happened to Jamie. She's finally invited her to the table, and he finally invited her to the table, and she doesn't even show. And Andy says that she told her to make sure the star gets to the studio, and of course they don't know all the stuff going on with her being, robbed of all her stuff and everything, so they don't know about that either. But they do know that, she's not supposed to be there anyway, so in many ways this benefits her. Richie asks who the photographer is, and she says it's Sherry, and Richie says to use Cruz like Hannibal always said to, and Andy says they're bringing Hannibal back, which Richie isn't really sure if that's actually going to happen. She thinks it's going to happen, but Richie's kind of like not entirely sure that that's actually possible, that they can bring Hannibal back, that they have the money, because he signed with Coronet, but Andy says it shouldn't be a problem because it takes a week for Jarvis to sign him, and within a week he'll be back, and they all start singing his theme music. And at the mention of Hannibal's name, Cece becomes flustered. She leaves the room, and Andy's noticing her behavior. So there's clearly a reason why Cece doesn't want to hear the name Hannibal. We know they had a thing, and we started to find out more about it in this episode, which I definitely liked. So even though he really has no say, and no one really wants him there, Maury suggests that they do a compilation album of 50s classics, which would be released as a collaborative effort between both companies, Coronet and American Century, and everyone shoots down the idea with the exception of Richie. Mainly because Richie just wants to make Maury feel good, I think, and it is a pretty terrible idea that the first album they release after all this time is a compilation. Now, they think it's a terrible idea that they do that. So, definitely they don't want to do that. Andy, Julie, and Zach are stunned by Richie's willingness to participate, but again, I really think it's all about Richie. Maury was Richie's mentor, and he wants to make him feel good, and he wants to make him feel like he belongs there, and I think he's trying to give him some encouragement. I think that's really what it's about. Richie's trying to give him some encouragement, and Richie then rushes out of the meeting to snort the cocaine, but hesitates, blows the powder off his hand, gives the pouch to the receptionist, and it looks like he is trying to go straight, like he's trying not to do as much cocaine. Remember, he said last week that he's only doing cocaine when he needs it for inspiration, because it just helps him with inspiration and things like that. So that I found very interesting, that he actually ditched the cocaine in this episode. So at Kip's apartment, Jamie's rummaging through her luggage. Kip cooks her a breakfast of toast and sardines. Asks if she will stay another night. She says yes, and he says more than tonight. And Jamie bursts into tears, and Kip does his best to comfort her. And he kind of knows what's going on, but now Jamie can stay with Kip and everything. And basically, in the mailroom, Clark and Jorge check out a song, a disco track in the Indigo album, and Act Richie is planning to cut from the label. But if you remember, Jorge kind of introduced Clark to this new kind of music, and they're really enjoying it. But Richie is planning on cutting them, so I'm wondering if Clark is going to try to get him to not cut him. So back in Richie's office, Maury, Zach, and Corzo are doing lines of cocaine. Corzo offers some to Richie, but he declines, and he knows he has an addiction. He's trying to kick back the habit. So Maury suggests throwing a party in the office in conjunction with the release of the compilation album. Richie suggests the old Rondelay offices, since they are indeed old, and Maury says it's going to be used for storage and quickly changes the subject. Corzo gets the feeling that Golasso may be behind that decision, and as usual, Corzo runs out the mouth, and Richie urges him to stop talking because he's going to make them look suspicious, and after Zach and Corzo leave, Maury reveals to Richie that Golasso decided to use the old office for storage, but he refused to tell Maury exactly what he's storing there. And Maury goes on to tell Richie about Golasso's other daughter, a mentally challenged girl who he never takes out in public. And I don't think we've heard about her before, but she apparently is this mentally challenged girl he never takes out in public, and she's become like very overly friendly with a number of the neighborhood Hispanic boys. And Golasso had the first one killed, but he knows he can't eliminate every guy she fools around with. He just can't do that. So Richie tries to ask Maury a question, but thinks better of it, and that's why they're using that old office, basically, because obviously he can't just kill everyone. And he wants to ask Maury a question, but he doesn't ask him, which is very interesting. And I like that Maury thinks he has all this control when we can tell that he really doesn't, but he is definitely kind of manipulating Richie in the way that he's doing things, you could definitely tell. So, members of the Nasty Bits are having fun with the racks of costumes brought in for their photo shoot. As Alex and Otto try to convince Kip to wear something indicative of his British heritage, he confronts Alex about his long hair, threatening to cut it. Alex calls his bluff and agrees to have his hair cut, but only if Kip does the honors, and I like the kid, that Kip is, I like that we saw more of the Nasty Bits having fun here, like we got more introduced to the other members of the band, because we weren't really seeing them as characters. They were kind of just there. They really weren't doing much of anything, and here you can definitely tell they're doing a lot more. Jamie's stinging Kip and Alex along, seemingly to maintain unity within the band, and Andy picks up on that. Julie then goes to talk to Richie in his office, concerned about his state of mind, because Richie reveals obviously why is he letting Maury do all this stuff, and why is Maury getting the decision, and why he's even there, and Richie reveals he's trying to stay off cocaine since he had to spend the weekend without any. Julie's interested in bringing a young Bruce Springsteen to the label, and Julie describes him as a throwback in some ways. He's like an approachable Bob Dylan, which is very interesting, and Julie goes on to tell Richie that he saw Springsteen at Max's Kansas City, where he also saw Devon having a drink, and Richie is now all ears, eager for more details, but Julie doesn't have much more to tell him, because Julie's not really happy with him right now. You can already tell he's not really happy with him. So Cece enters, despite Richie telling her that he didn't have time to talk to her. She sits on the couch, stares at Richie, and just bursts into tears. And again, something is going on. We don't know what it is, but something is definitely going on with Cece, with Hannibal, and we don't really know what's going on there. So I love the way that was done. In the office lobby, Jamie, while she's refilling her drug stash for the Nasty Bits, we see Andy confronts her, tells her that she doesn't have to end. I love this scene with Andy, because in many ways, Andy's been in this situation before. We know that she was with Richie, we know they have a past, and we know that they're not like that anymore, that they're not together, and basically, she decides to find out what's going on. She basically talks about how they don't have to sleep with members of the band to get them to follow instructions. And Jamie's speechless, is stunned that Andy has figured things out. And not only that, we see Richie and Cece exit his office, his arm around her, comforting her. Andy comments on Cece's departure from the morning meeting at the mention of Hannibal's name, and Cece bursts into tears again. And Andy realizes that Cece is pregnant, basically, and that's why she's crying, that she's pregnant with Hannibal's baby. And Andy goes off on all three of them, mostly Jamie and Cece. That's mainly who she's most concerned about. And she's basically saying that, Jamie wants this A&R position, but she can't get it if she's just going to have sex with these guys. I mean, they're just not going to trust her, because she'll favor them, things like that. They're just not going to trust her if she's having sex with them every 5 seconds. So, obviously, it's a problem. But I do like that Andy did call them out in this. I think she had genuine reason to do that. I do think, she's had experience with this sort of thing, and she knows what, when someone is upset, what's going on with that kind of thing. So she can relate to this, and I do like that. Lester then walks in the offices to drop the tape off the Nasty Bits new song, notices Maury in the conference room, and years ago we know Maury accompanied Golasso to rough up Lester for trying to defect into Richie's label, and we can tell that, things are not good between Maury and Lester right now, because the last time he saw Maury, I mean, he ended up getting, his throat was crushed by a baseball bat, as we know. And, basically because of that, that's why he's lost his voice, and I like we remind that in this episode, because that's how we got here. That's how things didn't turn out well between Lester and and Richie, but now Lester really doesn't want to be there. Richie sees Lester see Maury. He tries to explain the new office situation, but there's nothing Richie can say because Lester knows that Maury is Galasso's puppet and that anything that Galasso does, Maury just follows along. And Lester wants nothing more to do with Richie and kind of just wants to do what he's doing, just to work with nasty bits and nothing more. And that's kind of what he agreed to. It's working for him, and that because he just doesn't want to work on anything more. So he doesn't really want to hear why Maury's there. He just knows that there's a specific reason, but he doesn't want to hear about it. So Ingrid has this, basically talks to Devon about her situation and her kids, and Richie goes to see Devon, but unknowingly knocks on the wrong apartment door, and we see this guy opens the door, zipping his pants. Richie, trying to maintain his composure, yells Devon's name, and Billy informs him that she stays 2 doors down. Richie immediately apologizes, continues down the hall to find Devon's apartment door ajar. He hears a man grunting inside, cautiously enters the apartment, and the grunting grows louder, and Billy is trying to hit a bat with a tennis racket, and he asks for Richie's help. Richie asks for the racket and accidentally hits the photographer in the forehead while frantically swinging at the bat, which I thought was a pretty funny scene. And after a few attempts, Richie hits the bat to the ground, and Richie notices blood running down the photographer's face, asks if he's okay, and when the crisis is over, the two look at each other and silently realize the situation, and the photographer quickly walks off, basically, because Billy realizes who Richie is, Richie realizes who Billy is, and I love that they don't say anything. They kind of just look at each other, and they're like, oh, now I know who you are. That's why you're here. And Richie is quite pissed, you can definitely tell. But Devon storms him, accusing Richie of hitting the photographer purposely. But before he can explain, obviously things are not good between Devon and Richie. But I do like that we did have some talks between them this episode, because we've had 3 episodes now where they've had nothing, where they haven't talked, and, she's been gone for a while. I like that we finally had a much-needed conversation between these two. So Devon storms in, accusing Richie of hitting Billy purposely, but of course he didn't mean to do that. But before he can explain, he sees the photos that Devon took of their trash living room, and a brief argument ends with Richie pleading to Devon to come home, and later he stops by Ingrid's for a dinner date with his children, and, basically, she's just not going to come home right now. She can't be with Richie, as we know. She just can't, she can't really trust him. You can't really blame her, but she can't really trust him right now. So back in Kip's apartment, Jamie tweaks the hack job that Kip did on Alex's hair to look more presentable. All 3 are drinking and eating pizza, and in the blink of an eye, Jamie goes from being A&R to a groupie. She flirtatiously dances with both guys, and they end up having a threesome, basically, which is crazy, and you can definitely tell that her position A&R is definitely not going to happen, because if she's just going to, again, have sex with them, she can't be an A&R, and that's something that she wants, but her dreams are just unrealistic, and that really is the thing. She might actually have to listen to her mom, and I think actually end up working, in that restaurant, because she's not going to be A&R. I mean, if she wants A&R, she's definitely not going to get it if she's just going to keep sleeping around. So Zach, Richie, and Skip sit around drinking and brainstorm on how to funding for Zach's Xavier project, because he really wants Xavier to go far. He really wants this guy to be very talented. He wants him to be one of their head artists. And Skip leaves, and Zach and Richie briefly discuss what's going on with Devon. And Clark and Jorge then return to the house party with the Indigo album. They tell DJ Johnny John which track to play. He gives it a brief listen through his headphones before cueing the song. And with the opening beats, the dance floors clear immediately. After nearly a minute of play, a few partygoers feel the groove, and then a few more, and Clark breathes a sign of relief, just knowing that they enjoy this music, knowing that this can be successful. He'll be able to convince Richie to use Indigo and to not cut them, but he hasn't really been able to do that, because he didn't really know if Indigo was all that great, and he sees the public does enjoy it, and that's a reason why they should keep them. And it's clear that he does want to keep Indigo, just because the impact they've had on him, the way they've explored him to music that he's hadn't heard before. This is clearly someone he does want to keep, and he should definitely wants to tell Richie, but you can tell. So while Skip and Zach are going over some paperwork, Zach receives a phone call from and this is an incredible scene the way this was done. He gets this phone call from the Vegas Hotel Casino where he and Richie stayed, and Zach is offered a complimentary return trip and hotel stay, and after hanging up, Zach replays that night in his mind, and basically, he's just thinking, okay, that's great that they let him stay there. But Skip basically tells him that there's no way they're not going to let him stay there unless something had happened, unless money was lost. And of course, we were thinking that the money was stolen. That's what we were led to believe. But Zach replays the night in his mind, and a memory is triggered, and Zach realized that it was Richie who actually blew the 90,000. It was not Zach. It wasn't the girls that took it. They didn't rob him of anything. Richie took the 9 million, and obviously he's beyond pissed at Richie. Richie then boards the elevator. Zach makes inside before the door closes, and he beats Richie bloody. Like, he beats him to a pulp, but But the thing is, Richie doesn't fight back. He actually just lets him beat him. And I think Richie knows he screwed up. He knows he did something wrong here. He knows that he should take him out. He knows that he couldn't really do this any longer. And I feel like Richie feels he should be punished. He's done so many things, and he definitely is trying to turn things around, that he does want things, he does want to be hurt. He does want to, all these things to happen to him. He knows he did wrong. He knows he screwed up, and he knows that he has genuine reasons to be pissed at him. So I love that Zach finally took his anger on him. He had every right to do that. I can totally understand why Zach did that. But you can tell right now that Zach is just done with Richie. He doesn't want to hear from him. He doesn't want to talk to him. And we even see next week, next week's episode says he's going to try to ruin Richie. And it definitely, you can tell that I think Zach really is not going to trust Richie anymore. Zach has always been Richie's confidant, the person that always trusts him the most, the person that always knows how to talk to him. But knowing this happened, and knowing that Richie lied to him deliberately, obviously he had some reasons to wail on Richie, and I think Richie totally understood that. And that's why I think Richie didn't try to fight back. He knows he did wrong, and he can't really do anything about it. So Kip awakens to find Jamie and Alex cuddled in his sleep. He sits on the edge of the bed, a concerned look in his face, because Jamie and Alex seem to be getting very close, and he kind of feels like he's third wheel, and this is definitely going to become a problem. So you can tell that he is starting to take a liking to Jamie, but Jamie might start to be liking Alex, and I like the way this is going. This isn't just a love triangle, it is a problem for the band, because Alex is in Kip's band, and if Alex is going to be with Jamie, Kip obviously likes her as well. It's definitely going to be a problem here, and I like the way that this is being handled, because the biggest problem, again, is that Jamie can't be A&R if she's doing all this stuff, and it's clear that she isn't thinking much of it, but it is obviously a problem. So Richie goes back to Devon's apartment building. She meets him out front complaining that his call woke the kids, and Richie comes clean to Devon, confessing the murder and how the stress of keeping it a secret formed him to start using again, and that's basically why he's using now, mainly because of the pressure of confessing the murder. And I love that he finally told her, because it's a relief. You can just tell that Devon is speechless, but she's also kind of relieved, mainly because he doesn't have to hide this from her anymore. It's great. He doesn't have to hide this. And Richie then walks off. He goes back to his office, and he's now actually confessing. He's not going to hide things anymore. You can tell that Richie knows he did wrong, and he's willing to make up for it, because this has been getting him nowhere. Him not making up, basically, not saying anything hasn't gotten him anywhere, and now he's confessing. It's actually getting him somewhere. So he sees the smashed television set photo and stares at briefly before playing the tape. Lester let him hear of the nasty bits saying "a woman like you," and the music just moves him, much like it did the night of his epiphany during the building collapse, and it kind of just lets Richie realize that everything he's been working for has been working. It hasn't been the other way around. It hasn't been ruined. His success is working, and basically this gets him to call his lawyer to tell him he wants to take the plea deal, and that's how the episode ends. So you can tell that Richie is not going to basically not listen to things. He's going to listen to things. He's going to take responsibility. He wants to turn things around. I definitely really love seeing that. But overall, guys, I really love this episode. The way it's setting up things for the finale, you can definitely tell they're starting to move things in motion. But it really seems like we're going to get a new Richie, definitely. Just the way this is being handled, it seems like Richie isn't going to lie as much anymore. He's not going to make as many bad decisions. He's trying to get clean. Definitely, it seems like he actually is going to stick to it, though, because we know that he didn't do cocaine this episode. Now, if he does cocaine next week, okay, yes, I'll be upset, but right now, I like that he at least is trying to turn things around. He's aware that he screwed up, and he is trying to fix it, and I definitely love seeing that. So I really loved all those scenes here. Devon and Richie, they'll never, I think, ever be the same, but I like that Devon at least knows what's going on with Richie. But Richie now knows that she's having sex with a photographer and what's going on there. So basically, that's obviously a complicated situation that Richie doesn't want to get into. But I do like what's going on with Devon and Billy, though, because it's clear that Billy does want Devon to take an interest in photography. She thinks it's just kind of a hobby, but he wants her to be an occupation, not just a hobby, and that she's very good, and obviously she is very good, and she should think of it as more of an occupation than a hobby, definitely, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that. Jamie, if she wants to be, like I said, an executive in A&R, she can't keep having sex with these two men. She just can't keep doing that, but she can't, and it seems like it's not going to work for her, and especially with Alex, it's going to become a very complicated situation with Kip and Alex, because obviously they're both in the same band. Kip clearly likes Jamie. Jamie might not have as much feeling for him, but definitely very interesting. It doesn't feel like a love triangle because she's not fighting over these two men. She knows what she wants. It's just Kip really wants Jamie, and he can't really have her because it seems like she likes Alex more than she likes him, and this obviously is upsetting Kip. Definitely, you can definitely tell. So Zach is every ready, I think, to go after Richie. I'm looking forward to seeing how that all plays out because that's going to be crazy. I mean, it feels like it came out of nowhere, but it definitely does make sense. I mean, Zach has lost all this money because of Richie, and this was just the last straw. This was the last straw. He's now pissed at Richie. He doesn't want anything to do with him, and you can tell that he definitely is going to try to take over, definitely. He does not think that Richie should run. Maury is trying to get involved, and obviously a lot of people don't want him there. We'll have to see what happens with that. If he'll continue to stay, if Richie will try to get rid of him. I feel like Richie should try to get rid of him because no one really wants Maury there right now. But to Richie, I know that, he has genuine reason for wanting him there because, he's known him for a while and things like that. I think Clark is going to try to get Richie to sign Indigo because he clearly does like Indigo and he wants him to sign him. So we'll have to see what happens there. That's going to be very interesting. Are they going to be able to get Hannibal back? I mean, I know Andy's convinced they will, but will they be able to? We don't really know. We're going to have to see what happens with that. But overall, guys, really love this episode. One of my favorites this season, without a doubt. Maybe my favorite, I don't really know. But I can't wait for next week's finale. This really just showed me what the show is capable of. And when the show has a lot going on, it's really great. And it wasn't convoluted. Everything really did make sense. Everything really felt like it needed to be there. I don't know if you guys saw this episode. Really enjoyed overall. We'll see you guys in the next video, which will be for the season of Togetherness. And I will, because season 2 ends. And of course, I will review the season and the series, because it was actually the series finale last night, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.